The first thing he noticed was disgrace, changed into cord and attached to an aged timber barrier. Her limbs were extended upward, her legs pushed separate, and the cord cut deep enough to cause her entire form to shake under the warm season sunlight. Her breathing emerged weak and interrupted, like she was scared even oxygen might harm her. He approached from behind her, from the incorrect direction at the incorrect moment. Near, too near, and for a moment too extended. Nothing about it appeared correct, did not appear like assistance. She could not hide herself, she could not escape. She could only tremble and gaze at the heavens like it was the only item remaining that had not contacted her yet. She was youthful, too youthful to be abandoned like this in the exposed area, too youthful to appear like she had already ceased trusting anyone honorable was arriving. Jack Thompson pulled his horse firmly and leaped off before the creature had completely halted. He did not yell, did not inquire. Out here, when you observed something like that, you acted first and considered later. He approached behind the barrier, near enough to detect dirt, perspiration, and terror, near enough to sense how severely she was trembling. He bent down behind her spine, cautious not to allow her mass fall, one limb moving in to support her stable so the cords would not rip her connections apart. That was when she sensed him. The force altered. Her form rose just enough for the cord to relax a bit, and the broad edge of his cap touched against her by mistake, moved ahead as he bent in to access the tie. Her speech emerged in a fractured murmur, keen with alarm. "Your skull! Do not!" It was not strong, it was not distinct, but it was sufficient to sound incorrect. Incorrect enough, but if anyone had been observing, it would have appeared like something awful was about to occur behind that barrier. Jack paused, not because of terror, but because he comprehended precisely what she believed he was performing. He drew his skull back immediately, raised his cap away, and held his palms where she could sense them stable and certain. He talked softly, gradually, the way you speak to a frightened horse or an injured young cow. "Calm now, I am releasing you." But terror does not heed to logic. Terror only recalls suffering. Her limbs shook stronger, the cord squeaking against aged timber, her breathing catching like she was preparing for something worse than the sunlight and the dirt and the humiliation of being bound like a creature. Jack swallowed and returned to labor, cautious now, slower, keeping his form positioned away even though it made the ties harder to access. If he stumbled, she would fall. If he hurried, she would cry out. Either way, this could become unpleasant quickly. He did not know her identity, did not know why she had been abandoned like this, did not know who had done it. All he knew was that nobody deserved to be bound to a barrier and overlooked. Out here, you learn something early. Cruelty is simple. It does not require skill. Kindness requires courage because it always risked being misinterpreted. A burst of warm Kansas breeze shook the panels. Somewhere off toward the path, a horse made a noise, and for just a pulse, Jack had the ill sensation that someone might be observing, seeing only what they desired to see. A mature man behind a young lady. Chords, quiet, a partially spoken request. "Your skullduggery, do not—" The first tie finally yielded a little under his digits. Before we proceed any further, let me state this clear and truthful. This tale has been collected from ancient records, repeated and formed with attention. Some particulars have been included to bring clearer teachings, deeper significance, and a stronger feeling of what existence felt like back then. All pictures used to show this tale are produced by AI to help convey the feeling and importance of the instant. If this type of tale is not for you, it is fine to depart, get some relaxation, and care for your well-being. But if you remain and something in this narrative connects with you, leave a remark and inform me. I have more tales like this prepared to be shared for people who still pay attention. The cord relaxed another measure. She breathed sharply as sensation returned to her palms, ache keen enough to make her shout. Jack supported her stable from behind, gaze fixed on the tie, mouth firm, every fiber aware of how this must appear to anyone who arrived around that edge. He could already imagine it, a murmur in a tavern, a look held too extended, a falsehood developing support. Out here, a man standing could dangle just as quickly as a form. Her arms drooped as one arm slipped loose. She fell back against him before she could prevent herself. Tired, lightheaded, hardly upright, Jack grasped her without considering. And somewhere past the barrier, past the warmth blur and the humming insects, a single decision was being created. Not by him, not by her, but by the community that had not even reached yet. So here is the inquiry you should consider before we continue. When a man is viewed in the worst possible view, and the facts are quieter than the falsehood, does performing the correct actions still protect him, or does it only provide the group a better cause to ruin him? Jack kept his limbs solid around her middle, not firm in a way that would frighten her, just stable enough that she did not drop and injure her skull on the firm soil. The instant her loose arm fell, the circulation returned to her palm and she flinched like she had been scorched. Ache does that. It makes a person unkind without desiring to be. She attempted to withdraw from him, then almost fell when her limbs weakened. Jack adjusted his feet in the dirt and accepted more of her mass from behind. He disliked how it appeared. He disliked how it felt. A young lady bound like farm animals and an older man supporting her from the rear of a barrier. If the evil one desired a picture to destroy a man, this was it. He did not speak much. Men who speak too much in an instant like this usually speak the incorrect thing. He just labored the tie on her other arm slower now, keeping his cap back and his skull away so she would not alarm again. Her breathing stabilized in small parts, not peaceful but less frantic. Her gaze kept moving toward the area, toward the silent path, toward the edge of the structure like she anticipated somebody to arrive charging out any moment. Jack followed her glance. The metalworker's shop rested nearby, entrance closed, a heavy block shadow inside, instruments hanging in the gloom. The location smelled like ancient fuel and metal, even with the fire pit cold. That odor was known to Jack because every farm relied on a metalworker sooner or later. Animal shoes, fasteners, links, joints. A good metalworker could keep a property active. A bad one could end it. He got the second arm loose. She drooped again, and this time she released a small noise that was not terror. It was comfort trying to emerge but not knowing how. Jack guided her down so her shoes contacted the soil, then kept his palm at her joint while she checked her limbs. That was when he noticed the signs. Not the cord injuries. Those were severe enough. He noticed older injuries at the border of her coverings, faint but actual. He noticed a small scratch on her face that appeared like a palm had pushed her into timber. He had observed men perform that kind of labor before, then grin in public like holy people. She swallowed and attempted to stand upright like dignity could support her when her form could not. Her mouth trembled as she gazed at him. Then she gazed away quickly, ashamed. Jack cleared his voice. Keeping his speech gentle, he inquired one simple item. "Are you injured severely?" She agreed, then disagreed, then agreed again. It was not a response, it was a tempest. He did not urge her. Instead, he did what an older man does when he is trying to assist without making it worse. He moved his palms away from her form, took one step backward and turned his arms a little so she did not feel trapped. Then he indicated at the shop with his face. "Where is your spouse?" That inquiry altered her expression. Terror returned strongly. Not the terror of cord, the terror of what occurs after the cord. She murmured that he was absent, out on a task, not distant, not extended, and that he would return. She did not state his identity yet, like identifying him might call him. Jack glanced at the path again. Warm season warmth made the distance waver like the ground itself was intoxicated. He paid attention. No vehicle sound, no animal step close, just insects and breeze and that terrible silence that arrives before difficulty. He provided her liquid from his container, holding it out at full reach so she could accept it without feeling contacted. She paused, then consumed like she had not had a drink in hours. A little flowed down her face, and she removed it fast. Ashamed of requiring anything, Jack did not humiliate her. He had observed strong men weep over a damaged horse. He had observed women continue upright with a broken bone. The requirement was not fragility, it was existence. While she consumed, Jack observed the cord ends. The ties were not careless, they were firm, intentional, the kind a man used when he did not want something escaping free. That was not envy in a burst, that was dominance. And then Jack noticed something else that made his belly tighten. There was a short length of cord with a clean slice, not worn, sliced with a tool. That meant whoever bound her had time and instruments and endurance. A noise came from the distant side of the barrier line, a quick scrape of shoes and dry plants. Jack turned his skull, and he captured just the end of it, a child or a thin young man escaping away behind the edge of the structure. Jack's first urge was to shout out. His second urge was smarter. If somebody was observing, then somebody was already constructing a tale. He gazed back at her. She was observing the same edge, and her gaze widened like she knew precisely who it was. A messenger, a speaker, the kind of person who could take an instant and exchange it for a free beverage and community. Jack felt the soil shift under his shoes, not from a ground shake, but from the burden of what was arriving. If that boy arrived in Dodge City first, Jack could be ended before he ever spoke a complete statement. He made a choice that was not courageous, just essential. He was not going to guide her into community himself, not like this. That would appear like a capture to a group that did not inquire. He required a location that would make sense, a location where a lady could be viewed as a sufferer, not a reward. He inquired her identity. She informed him, Emily Johnson. 2 terms, gentle as dirt. He informed her, his Jack Thompson, and he stated it clear so she would recall it if she had to repeat it. Then he indicated toward the path that led into Dodge City, and he informed her they were going to Dr. Miller, not the tavern, not the law building yet, the physician first. She paused, gazing past him like she was measuring whether the physician was safer than her own residence. That delay informed Jack everything. Jack provided her his jacket, and she accepted it after a moment, covering it around herself like it was the first goodness she had been permitted in a long time. He assisted her walk, but he kept his palms cautious, staying to her side now, not behind her, not giving the world another image to distort. They made it a few steps before Emily spoke again, speech small. "He will say it was you." Jack did not respond immediately, but he just agreed once like he already knew. Because men like her spouse did not just bind cords, they bound tales. And in Dodge City, tales could construct a hanging structure faster than builders. They arrived at his horse, and Jack gazed back at the empty metalworker shop, the cold fire pit, the hanging instruments. He had arrived for simple labor, metal and fasteners, and a small request for his farm. Now he was departing with a hurt girl, a bad sensation, in the assurance that the whole community was about to hear the ugliest version of him. Then from down the path, faint but actual, came the noise of animal steps and metal ringing like a tool striking something firm. Jack tightened his mouth because it sounded like the metalworker was returning home. Jack did not wait to see who was approaching. He did not have to. That noise of metal hitting metal was etched into his memory from a lifetime around farm labor. It was a metalworker noise, and it was approaching closer. He assisted Emily onto his horse first, slow and cautious, letting her rest on the seat support while he stabilized her. She moved rigid, like every step ached more than she wanted to admit. He climbed up after her, keeping distance, keeping his palms where anyone could see them if someone arrived around the curve. They traveled toward Dodge City at a controlled speed, not quick enough to appear like they were escaping, not slow enough to invite difficulty. The path glowed under the sunlight, and dirt stuck to everything. Jack felt gazes on his back even when there were not any. That was how it always began. A sensation first, then a speech, then a group. They arrived at Dr. Miller's location without event, but the silence did not continue. Silence never does. The physician took Emily inside without inquiries, which informed Jack something immediately. This was not the first time a lady had come through that entrance, injured and scared. Jack waited outside, cap in his palms, gazing at the soil like a schoolchild, listening to the muffled noises of liquid and cautious motion. When the physician returned out, his lips were set firm. He did not speak much. He did not have to. Jack thanked him and inquired what he owed. The physician disagreed and informed him to worry about remaining alive through the afternoon. That was the second alert. Jack stepped back out onto the road, and that was when he sensed it. The change. The way atmosphere alters when a tale has already arrived before. Men had collected near the tavern, not in a close cluster yet, but near enough to exchange glances. A few halted speaking when they noticed him. One expelled saliva in the soil. Jack walked anyway. He kept his speed even, shoes stable, arms relaxed. He had learned long ago that terror appears guilty to people who are already searching for a cause. As he passed the tying rail, a speech rose behind him, strong enough to travel. "That is him." Jack did not turn. Turning gives a man too much authority. Inside the tavern, the atmosphere was dense with perspiration and aged alcohol. The music instrument played something idle and incorrect. A couple of farm workers laughed too strong, then halted when Jack came through the entrance. He requested liquid, not alcohol. That mattered to him, even if it did not matter to anyone else. That was when Henry Black walked in. The metalworker filled the entrance like he possessed it. Large arms, strong palms, a face that knew how to appear worried in public. Henry did not gaze at Jack immediately. He gazed around the space, letting the silence grow, letting the men observe him. Then he spoke peaceful and controlled like a man who had nothing to conceal. He inquired if anyone had noticed his wife. The space changed. Someone responded before Jack could. Said she had been discovered bound up. Said an older farmer had been with her. Henry turned then. His gaze landed on Jack like he just spotted a dangerous snake under his shoe. He did not yell. He did not attack. He did something worse. He exhaled deeply. He said he had only departed for labor. He said he returned to hear his wife had been injured. He said he was thankful the community protected its own. Then he said one statement that hit harder than a strike. He said the man was behind her. That was all it required. Men in the tavern bent forward. A seat scraped. Someone swore under their breath. Jack sensed the instant extended thin. He could describe, he could tell the facts, slow and cautious, but facts move slow, and fury runs. And a running falsehood does not need evidence. It only needs companions. That is how honorable men get drawn into bad actions, one shared conviction at a time. A palm pushed his arm, another seized his jacket. Jack raised his hands, trying to prevent it from escalating, but the push came again, stronger this time. The first strike was not his. It never is. When it arrived, Jack responded on urge. He turned, defended, and pushed his mass into the man's chest and sending him stumbling back into a surface. Containers broke. Someone shouted. The conflict was on. Jack did not search for injury, but he searched for room. He moved like a man who knew how to drop without fracturing and how to stand without boasting. He accepted a hit to the sides that took his breath. Then he delivered one back that sent a younger man rotating. Seats fell. The music instrument halted. Dirt rose from the floor panels. Then a speech cut through it all, keen and experienced. "That is sufficient." Sheriff Davis stood in the entrance, palm on his weapon, gaze cold. He did not care who began it. He cared who ended it. The space became still. Jack straightened gradually, chest firm, mouth clenched. He had not used his weapon that mattered. Henry stood off to the side, untouched, observing, like a man observing a blaze he had started from a safe distance. The sheriff gazed at Jack and informed him to step outside. Not under capture, not free, just out of the path. Jack went on the road. The group had increased. Information had spread quickly. Faces were firm now, evaluating. The sheriff informed Jack he was going to keep him near for his own benefit. Said Dodge City did not need a cord thrown over confusion. Henry spoke then, strong enough for everyone. He said fairness should not delay. Jack met his gaze for the first time, and in that glance Jack noticed it. Not sorrow, not fury, comfort. The kind of comfort a man feels when the tale is going exactly the way he intended. The sheriff moved Jack toward the law building, palm solid on his limb. Not harsh, guarding. As they walked, Jack heard the whispers grow behind her, bound up, old enough to know better. Jack said nothing because he knew something worse was arriving. When a man wants you absent, he does not need to prove you did incorrect, he only needs the community to trust it, and Henry Black had already decided how this was going to conclude. Jack spent the first hour in the Dodge City Law Building listening to the community breathe. It was not quiet breathing. It was the kind that came in short draws, like a group bending forward without knowing it yet. The enclosure smelled of metal, perspiration, and aged timber. The barriers were thick, marked by men who had waited behind them and learned how thin fortune really was. Jack sat on the seat with his joints on his knees, Cap resting beside him, and gazed at the floor like it might explain how a simple stop for metal had changed into this. Sheriff Davis had not secured him in strongly. That informed Jack something. The sheriff was not certain, not about fault, not about purity, just certain enough that the community was eager. Davis came back after a while and rested against the barriers. He spoke softly so the men outside would not hear. He informed Jack he did not trust in cord first and inquiries later. He also informed him that trust did not stop a group once it got moving. Jack agreed. He already knew. The sheriff inquired him one item, why he had been at the barrier. Jack informed him the facts, clear and stable, even without trying to improve it. He said he discovered a lady bound up and released her from behind because that was the only way to prevent her from falling. He said the cap was a mistake. He said he never contacted her the incorrect way. Davis listened, did not stop him, did not evaluate. When Jack completed, the sheriff exhaled deeply and rubbed his mouth. He said the issue was not the tale, it was the schedule. By then, Henry Black had already been through 2 taverns. Not yelling, not warning, just speaking. Speaking was worse, because a strike leaves injuries you can indicate. A rumor leaves injuries nobody can notice, and those are the ones that alter a life. While Jack sat behind barriers, Henry was out there letting the community construct the image for him. A good spouse, a hard-working metal worker, a wife discovered bound up, an older farmer behind her. Henry did not need to deceive much, he only needed to omit what mattered. Later that afternoon, Dr. Miller came by. He stood with his cap in his palms like a man at a burial and requested to see Jack alone. The sheriff paused, then departed. The physician did not grin. He informed Jack the girl was steady, painful, injured, disturbed. Then he informed Jack something else. The signs on her arms were not new only. Some were older, and that resolved something deep in Jack's stomach. It was not evidence, but it was facts. The physician said Emily Johnson had not wanted to speak much. Terror had a way of closing a person up. But she had said one item that mattered. She said her spouse bound ties like a man securing farm animals, not like a man losing his control. Jack rested back against the surface and closed his gaze. That was the noise he had heard in his mind since the barrier. Not fury, habit. After the physician departed, Jack observed a man remaining outside the law building, a man with clean shoes and a courteous stance. Not a farm worker, not a wanderer, one of the community men who liked to think of himself as honorable. That man spoke quietly with Henry not far from the law building entrance. Jack could not hear the terms, but he noticed the agreements, noticed the way Henry's arms eased. That was when Jack comprehended something else. Henry was not alone. A metal worker could do a lot, but he could not move farm animals or sell them without assistance. He could not turn a community this quickly without someone urging from the other side. The sunlight moved lower and the warmth did not reduce. If anything, it made attitudes worse. Voices collected outside, not yelling yet, just collecting. Jack stood and approached the barriers. He noticed faces he recognized, men he had exchanged with, men he had shared drink with on the route. They did not gaze at him now. Henry stood a little separate, limbs crossed, skull lowered like a man burdened by sorrow. He glanced up just once and met Jack's gaze. There was no fury there, only assurance. That glance chilled Jack more than any warning because it informed Henry trusted the community would complete this for him. As evening approached, the sheriff returned, mouth firm. He said he was trying to reduce speed. He said people were speaking about creating an instance. He said Jack required something solid, not just a tale. Jack inquired about the cord, and the sheriff frowned. Jack described the ties again, slower this time, described how they were described the clean slice, and described the endurance it required. The sheriff listened harder now. Jack continued. He said a man who bound cord like that was not acting out of sudden fury. He was acting out of habit, dominance. The sheriff did not respond immediately. Then he inquired Jack why he had come to the metal worker in the first place. That inquiry opened another entrance. Jack informed him about the request. Not fasteners, not shoes, a marked piece, a custom one. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. Jack said a man could take farm animals, simple enough, But changing taken farm animals into honest-looking farm animals required metal. It required a metal worker. That made the sheriff straighten, because Dodge City had been noticing farm animals pass through that did not seem correct on records. Nothing confirmed, just incorrect. Outside, a shout occurred, then another. The group was no longer waiting. The sheriff placed his palm on the barriers and bent in. He said, if Jack had evidence, now was the time to discover it. Because once darkness fell, the community would stop paying attention, as if called by that idea. A gentle tap came from the rear entrance of the law building. The sheriff turned. Dr. Miller approached from the warm evening atmosphere, cap low, gaze tired. He did not arrive alone. Emily Johnson was not far behind him, remaining in the shadow like she still did not trust the evening. Physician held up something covered in fabric. He uncovered it slow under the light. A small piece of metal. A mark head. Physician said Emily had discovered it earlier, placed behind fuel bags in the shop, and she had given it to him because she knew her spouse had observers everywhere. Then Physician added one more item, and it hit like a stone. He said she knew where the rest of it was concealed too. Dr. Miller held the small piece of metal like it might harm him. Up near, Jack could notice it better through the barriers. It was heavy for its size, cold, formed with intent, not an animal shoe, but not a fastener, a mark head. The sheriff accepted it from Physician's palm and turned it gradually into the light glow. The sheriff gazed toward the front of the law building. The group was still out there, tired but persistent, and evening made men unkind. He did not open the enclosure, not yet. He said Jack would remain inside until morning. He said the community would be half-resting then, worn from warmth and alcohol. And that was the only time they could act without starting the conflict again. The sign cut into it was clean and keen, not worn from honest application. This item had not been working farm animals for years. It had been waiting. Physician spoke quietly, stable in a way that made Jack's chest tighten. He said Emily Johnson had discovered it covered in fabric, concealed behind bags of fuel in the shop. She had provided it to him because she was finished risking her life alone. She said her spouse never applied it in front of her. She said he informed her not to contact it, not to inquire, and never to mention it. That was sufficient. The sheriff's expression altered, not fury yet, worry. He said he had noticed that sign before, not on records, on skins that came through community fast and departed faster, farm animals that did not belong to the men selling them. The group outside the law building was louder now. Shoes scraped, voices rose over each other. Someone shouted that it was time. The sheriff made a choice that could get him removed from position or worse. He decided to delay, then act when the community was too tired to become a crowd. Before morning, when the heavens were still gray and the atmosphere finally cooled, the sheriff returned. He opened the enclosure. Jack approached out slow, not hurrying, letting the lawman set the speed. Physician went first. Emily Johnson remained near, and this time she did not require the jacket to conceal in, only the assurance that someone would finally pay attention. The sheriff informed him he was not free, not yet, but he was not finished either. They moved silent through the rear, not quick, not strong, taking side paths while Dodge City rested. The fire pit rested ahead, dark and still like a mouth that had already consumed too many secrets. Emily walked with them, jacket firm around her arms, mouth set. She did not gaze back. The metalworker shop appeared different at morning, harsher somehow. The fire pit was cold, but the odor of metal never departed. In the early glow, it felt less like a conflict was arriving and more like a fax was about to be uncovered. Instruments hung where they always did, enduring, waiting. The sheriff informed Jack to remain near the entrance. He informed Emily to keep near to him. They did not require long behind the heavy block under loose panels. They discovered more. Another mark head, then another. Different signs, different farms, and a record book. Not tidy, not official, just figures and lines and identities scratched by a palm that knew what it was performing. Dates, sources, sales. And there were identities in there that did not belong in a metalworker shop. Henry, the farm child with a clean covering and a dirty smile. The one folks joked about but never opposed. That was why Henry had appeared so certain of himself. He was not just a metalworker, he was a connection in a chain. And chains do not frighten you because they are loud. They frighten you because they are silent, and they hold more than one man. The sheriff breathed out slow. He had arrived early to start the fire pit because a metal worker who wanted to appear innocent always made sure folks noticed him laboring. That was when Henry Black's speech filled the shop. He inquired what everyone was performing in his place of labor. Henry stood in the entrance with his coverings rolled up and his tool hanging loose in one palm. He appeared surprised, then irritated, then angry, but still peaceful. He said his wife should be at residence. He said the sheriff had no authority. He said Jack had no business breathing free atmosphere. A couple of early awakeners entered first, then a few more. Pulled by the sight of law at the metalworker shop, even half awake, people could detect difficulty. Henry approached forward, and the tool came up a little higher. Jack moved without considering. He did not charge Henry. He shifted sideways, placing the heavy block between them, keeping distance, keeping balance he had conflicted before. Not for dignity, for survival. Henry attacked. The tool struck against metal and sent a shock through the space. Bright bits jumped. Jack avoided, seized a length of link from the surface, and covered it once around his forearm, not to capture, to defend. Henry attacked again, frantic now, the piece breaking. Jack captured the handle with the link and pulled hard, twisting Henry off balance. The tool hit the floor. The conflict did not continue long. It never does when facts are heavy and deceptions are tired. Henry went down firm against the fire pit, breath removed from him, fury replaced by alarm. The sheriff approached in then, weapon ready, speech stable and strong enough for the group outside to hear. He said it was finished. Henry shouted that it was a trap, that his wife was deceiving, that Jack was the real taker. No one paid attention because the record book was open on the heavy block, because the mark heads were arranged where everyone could notice them, because a few men in the group recognized signs they had questioned but never opposed. The attitude shifted. Not comfort, not yet. Something warmer. The same fury that had wanted Jack's injury now turned. Men approached back from Henry. Faces hardened, trust shattered. The sheriff ordered Henry taken in links as they pulled him past the group. Henry twisted and gazed at Jack one last time. There was no fury left in his gaze, only surprise. The kind a man feels when he realizes the community he thought he possessed had just decided otherwise. Emily stood beside Jack, not contacting him, not needing to. She was no longer bound to a barrier, but she was still releasing herself from something firmer than cord. He was no longer blamed, but he could still feel the sign of it on his back, the way a mark stays painful long after the metal lifts. Sheriff Davis did his task. He secured the entrances, placed protectors, and assured an examination that would follow the law instead of the group. It was not perfect, it was not quick, but it was sufficient for now. Emily gazed toward the border of community where the glows thinned and the land opened up for the first time. She was not searching for a way to conceal, she was searching for a way ahead. Jack provided her a decision, not a scheme. He said she could remain where she was under the safeguard of the sheriff and the physician and construct something new on her own schedule, or she could come out to his location for a while, labor when she was prepared, relax when she was not, and decide later what she wanted her existence to appear like. He did not extend for her. He did not assure anything he could not maintain. That mattered more than terms. She chose the dawn, not the response. She said she would consider it, and that was sufficient. By the time the stars emerged, the community had settled into an uneasy rest. Facts had succeeded, but not clean. It never does. Jack departed early the next day, alone, dirt rising behind him. He did not gaze back at Dodge City immediately. He had learned that some locations only make sense once you have placed distance between you and them. Emily Johnson watched the sunlight climb from the porch of the physician's location, covered in a borrowed jacket, breathing like someone who had been holding her breath for years. Their tale did not conclude with a passionate embrace or a determined address. It concluded with something quieter and harder, honor. And if you have existed long enough, you know how rare that can be. I want to step out of the tale for an instant here, person to person. I have existed long enough to notice how quickly people evaluate and how slowly they apologize. I have also learned that performing the correct action does not always guard you, but not performing it will cost you something you never recover. This tale remained with me because it reminds me how thin the boundary is between being viewed as honorable and being ruined by a deception. There are a few teachings worth carrying out of Dodge City. The first is this: facts do not yell. It delays. If you are the kind of man who needs sound to feel correct, you will miss it every time. But if you remain stable, if you keep your palms clean, even when the world is not, facts has a way of appearing when it matters most. The second teaching is harder. Assisting someone can cost you. It can cost your standing, your security, and even your liberty for a while. But the cost of walking past an incorrect item is something you pay every day after, and the addition never halts. And maybe the most important teaching is about decision. Emily was not protected by Jack alone. She protected herself the instant she halted trusting the cord to find her. Jack did not rescue her future. He honored it. Ask yourself this: when you notice someone at their lowest, do you hurry to evaluate the image, or do you delay to learn the tale? When the group starts bending one way, do you bend with it, or do you place your feet and inquire why? And when performing the correct action puts you in a bad view, do you still perform it? Those are not ancient inquiries, they are daily ones. If this tale made you consider, if it reduced your speed even a little, take a moment and inform me by leaving approval. It helps this platform reach the people who still value tales with importance and significance. And if you want more tales like this about difficult decisions, quiet bravery, and lives formed by small instants, consider joining so you do not miss the next one. We exist in a loud world now. Everyone wants to be correct. Very few want to be fair. But every once in a while, a man makes a choice in the warmth and dirt that reminds us who we are supposed to be. And sometimes that is sufficient to alter the direction of a life. So I will leave you with this. If you were standing there at that barrier and the whole community was observing, would you still extend to release the cord?